The Shark Deck.
I'm Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. Let's start on Gossip Corner because it's fun. Cracked took a look at what comedians went to see Taylor Swift. Apparently, Zach Braff and Donald Faison, they're hanging out together. Fake doctors, real friends. I guess Mindy Kaling was there. Molly Shannon. Tiffany Haddish hanging out with Cameron Diaz and Zoe Saldana. That's a power group. Mike Myers also hit the show. Meanwhile, Will Ferrell has announced a second installment of Best Night of Your Life. This is a benefit for Cancer for College. Nice lineup, too. Jon Stewart, Hasan Minhaj, Joe Coy, Patti Harrison, Roy Wood Jr., Rory Scovel, the Smartless guys, some musicians including Mike McCready from Pearl Jam, Jack Black and Fred Armisen will perform as supergroup Mike McCready and the Casual Acquaintances. Will did this back in 2018 in ancient times before the pandemic. That show had Seinfeld, Gimmel, Conan, Sam B., Michelle Wolf, Jared Carmichael, and Kumail Nanjiani. Will said, immediately upon completing our last show in 2018, I set out on a search of the cosmos. The mission was to find the most incredible lineup of talent the world has ever seen. I think we can comfortably say mission accomplished. I'm going to push back on that. If you watch the video of the Magical Mystery Tour where they're singing All You Need Is Love, the Beatles plus the Rolling Stones, pretty good. I digress. For those of you saying, but Will, we've seen you a lot over the last 5 years in successful films, on popular streaming platforms, and wildly funny TV appearances, I'm here to tell you that cloning is real. Shout out to Will Ferrell. You did a hell of a job in my absence. My clones and I are super proud to be supporting the charity Cancer for College. I think we can all get on board with hating cancer and the terrible things that come with it. For 30 years, this organization has been providing need-based college scholarships, educational experiences, and medical debt to cancer survivors. All the proceeds from the show will benefit the cause. That's a nice job by Will Ferrell there. Bert Kresicher put out a tweet reminding us to check out Bert Kreischer's Fully Loaded at Sea cruise, which is a cool thing I'll tell you about in a second. But there's a waiting list, so I'm not even sure why he promoted it. Anyway, if you want to get on the waiting list, Bert Kreischer's Fully Loaded at Sea, October 27th through the 31st. Miami to Great Stirrup Key, Nassau, Bahamas. Your lineup: Bert Kreischer, of course, Mark Normand, Russell Howard, Felipe Esparza, Jim Norton, Miss Pat, Big J. Okerson, Sheng Wang, who I'm a big fan of, Sean Patton, Pete Lee, BertKreischerCruise.com if you want some information. Sounds like that'll be a good time if you're looking to rest. Probably not the right cruise for you. Eric Andre has a new podcast called Bombing with Eric Andre. I liked this the first time when it was called The Art of Bombing with Dan Bublitz Jr. But anyway, Eric Andre's version. On his show, he hangs out with fellow comedians and friends to talk about their worst moments in all sorts of ways on stage, in public, bombing, in life, and many more gnarly stories that may or may not involve audience members throwing a punch. Again, I liked it when it was called The Art of Bombing with Dan Bublitz Jr. Episode 1 of Eric Andre's show has guest Michelle Bitzeau. They talk about their early stand-up days, not knowing how to handle urine, presumably thrown at them, an audience turning on you in Jamaica, and day drinking with Dutch friends. Adam Devine walked back his comments. You may recall his comments were, I feel like superhero movies ruin comedies because you go to a theater and you expect to watch something that costs $200 million to make. Comedy movies aren't that. So you're like, why would I spend the same amount of money to go watch a little comedy in the theater if I can spend that and go see something that's worth $200 million? I almost slipped into half-ass Angry Jerry Seinfeld there. Anyway, people must have given Devine the business because he tweeted, as a guy who loves movies and TV, it's cool to be in variety, but this is misleading. I like Marvel, and I think these movies are cool. I'm guessing Mr. Devine's agent called him and told him to walk that back. Total guess by me. Now I feel like busting in half-ass Angry Jerry Seinfeld. See if I can find an excuse on today's pod. Rosebud Baker is recording her special today at the Village Underground in New York City. Chris Tucker going out on tour. It's called the Legends Tour, 30 dates kicking off September 8th in Charleston. Tucker said, I started my career doing stand-up in comedy clubs, and it's stand-up comedy that prepared me for all my movie roles. And if he said the rest of his quote as a half-ass Angry Jerry Seinfeld impression, it would sound something like this. I'm looking forward to getting back to my roots. I love performing live. It's nothing like the energy of a live crowd making people laugh. Excited to be out there on tour. Hollywood Reporter took a look at celebrity podcasts and who's allowed to do what. Zach Braff and Donald Faison, you know, fake doctors, real friends. Sometimes they see Taylor Swift together. They said, we're not allowed to talk about Scrubs. Now, I don't know if they said that both at the same time or how that works, but that's the quote. We're not allowed to talk about Scrubs. Not sure who said it. A SAG-AFTRA spokesperson tells The Hollywood Reporter rewatch, recap, and companion shows are promotional. They can drive viewers to Struck Company's platforms to watch Struck shows. Members who appear as guests on these podcasts are not permitted to promote Struck work under any circumstances. Unless they have a contract. See, that's not any circumstances if I throw an unless in there. Unless they have a contract that predates the strike and pre-existing contractual obligations that they must honor, hosts who are members should also refrain from promoting struck work. A talent's publicist says, it's frustrating because there are only so many ways some of these actors can make money, and I seriously doubt that discussing an 18-year-old episode of a canceled show is doing anything for the studios. The Always Sunny guys say they won't release episodes of the Always Sunny podcast while the strike goes unresolved. Kind of good for me because I like that podcast, but I'm about 100 episodes behind now. The reporter points out that's going to get complicated because they have some live recordings on the calendar, including one sold-out show at Radio City Music Hall. The Office ladies have been putting out their show, but noting the recordings had taken place before the strike. If you like what I do here, go to buymeacoffee.com/Daily Comedy News. There's some money in the tip jar. I'll take your money. I'll go to the National Donuts chain. I will get a large iced coffee with caramel and milk, and I will thank you on the show. Which reminds me, Zach had enjoyed one of my social media posts, and Zach commented, hey, I've been enjoying the podcast. Also wanted to mention that a couple months ago, my show, The Big Laugh, came out on Tubi. It's 6 comedians doing 15-minute sets. Just a bunch of us comics rented out a comedy club and put together a killer show. All right, everybody, that's called The Big Laugh on Tubi. Zach, thanks for sharing that. I will try and catch up on it. I'm behind on my comedy. I don't want to bring the show down. So my mom's been like really sick and it's been really stressful. And then quite candidly, Gaffigan special deals with funerals, which is why I'm avoiding it. Enough said. Move on. Okay. Been a stressful month. Garrett Millerick is playing the Fringe. Garrett wrote on Yahoo, hey, we've been trying to unpack why we all do the Edinburgh Festival, not just performers, but audiences. By the time you've shelled out for accommodation, travel, food, drinks, and tickets, you're down $1,000 minimum. For the same money, you could hop on a plane and be sipping a mojito on a beach in the Maldives, but you're not. You're in a basement in Scotland looking at me. This whole thing is an immersive experience and mental collapse. Everybody here is in some way unhappy with their lot. The performers are duking it out to get reviews, awards, and recognition so they can get more television, more radio, more followers. It's a constant chase, a desire to be laughed at and taken seriously at the same time. Look at the cavalcade of posters, laden with quotes promising to be the funniest person who ever lived, but complimented by a picture of someone who looks like they're about ready to ruin a dinner party. Trauma has been the enduring trend of the festival for a few good years, mining the worst experiences of life for laughs and recognition. Audiences are here to pursue happiness just as much as we are. Drinking from 2-pint jugs at lunchtime and seeing 9 comedy shows a day is well above the recommended units of both. I do this professionally 5 nights a week and can tell you that a sane number of live comedy shows to see in a year is probably 2. 9 in a day? Get some help. You aren't going out for 7 dinners tonight. Stop eating when you're full. Garrett Millerick's show is called Never Had It So Good. You'll find Garrett at the Monkey Barrel at the Tron. Mary O'Connell's show is called Monkey Princess. Yahoo says it's a blessed antidote to the very modern and wholly diluted pandemic of absolute certainty. She doesn't pretend to have any of the answers and instead obsesses over life's everyday absurdities. You'll find Mary at Pleasant Courtyard Bunker 3. Chortle gave 4 stars to Dan Tiernan's show and said, the show isn't like being trapped in a basement with a crazed lunatic yelling in your face. That's precisely what it is. Dan has a lot of issues. He knows he looks a bit peculiar and rattles off one hilarious analogy after another, quickly moving away from celebrity lookalikes into odd but uncannily precise descriptions that become running jokes across the hour. There's some element of freak show here, a sort of come see the wild man of Manchester rattling his cage danger to his intense delivery, which Tiernan fully leans into. 4 stars from Chortle. You'll find Tiernan at Monkey Barrel Comedy Club. Gary Mule Deer, a relatively obscure comedian. I know his work from when I used to run the comedy channels at the Satellite Radio Place many, many years ago. Gary does a pretty cool Johnny Cash bit. Anyway, there's a new documentary about him called Show Business is My Life, but I Can't Prove It, a film about Gary Mule Deer. Some of the people who appear in it, Amy Grant, Alice Cooper, and David Letterman. Red Sanders is the producer and says, so often we as Americans look at the big A-list celebrity names as like they've really done it, but it was interesting to see someone who didn't have the true limelight of an A-list celebrity, but is still able to look back on his career, where he got, what he's done, and be happy with it. And then on the flip side, how some of these A-list celebrities look at Gary and go, man, he's doing what we always wanted to do. And that is your comedy news for today. Follow the show for free on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or YouTube. Trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. Help me out. Do that. Push the subscribe button. See you tomorrow.
Hi, I'm Mark Francis and host of a new podcast, The Messi Effect. Join us as we take you into the exciting new world of Argentine soccer phenomenon, Lionel Messi. and his new life at Inter Miami. We'll bring you into the glitz, the glamour, the star-studded events, along with the exciting journey to a new world of U.S. soccer and international football with news and stories 3 times a week. Come along for the ride as Messi, Miami, and Major League Soccer experience the journey of a lifetime. Get the Messi Effect wherever you get your podcasts.